Welcome to Business Mastery with Don Kennedy, your quick under 45-minute dose of expert insights and strategies to make a positive impact on your business and life. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Business Mastery Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about your money, but not just your money, but an organizational system that will help you stay on top of the key areas of business finance. Some of it's personal, but business finance, because I know that as business owners, sometimes we think we have it sort of all covered, but maybe we don't. So I have Monica here. She developed this framework. I'm really excited to talk about it today and help you get organized. So thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Don. I really appreciate it. And I'm excited to give your audience a good podcast today, a conversation.
Yeah, me too. Can you tell everyone who you are and who you serve?
So basically, I'm an entrepreneur. I've been, my mom was an entrepreneur, so I started really young. It was interesting. She would give me a whole bunch of information on business, and I was like, "Why are you telling me all this stuff?" But then, it's worked out really well. So, basically, I've been studying finance for 30 years. So I do entrepreneurship, and then so my focus is on finance. And I serve businesses. So every, I now where I'm at in my stage of work, I'm doing bigger, higher volume clientele. But I've done everything from just like your startup with the idea. So I have a wealth of information. But I do focus on I am trying to focus on the more revenue simply because that's kind of where I'm at now with my business. So I would say that would probably be my top line client.
So a little bit of a bigger than startup, a little more seasoned.
Right, just because that's kind of where my business is at this point, yes.
I love it. All right. So let's dive right in and talk about the framework that you built that organizes not only the finances, but organizes the topics of finance so that people can make not only good decisions, but remember to do things when they're supposed to.
Exactly, right, right. So what I how I came up with this acronym for BITES was I just, I have so much experience in finance and I was just thinking, what are all the different pieces that go into finance? And so then I put all the different pieces up there and then I came out with BITES. The B for business budgeting, I for investing, T for taxes, E for exit strategy, and S for standard operating procedures or, just systems. And so there was actually one that I did leave out, D for debt, because it didn't fit in my acronym. But it's also very important for businesses, right? To think about like if they're going to grow, right? What kind of debt will you take with your business? Or if you have debt, right? Is it, are you getting a really great return on that? Can you get something better or, right? So just really thinking strategically, the Bites method is really a system to help you be strategic so you can get more of what you want as a business owner.
All right. So we know that probably everybody listening here is familiar with, business budget and the taxes, exit strategy and systems in finance. Let's talk about how that fits together because I don't think that's top of mind when people are thinking finance, that these categories need to be in consideration.
Yeah, that's great, and I think this is where it gets really exciting to be able to use the bite system. So for example, even look at the I, right? So let's even look at the I first. The I is investing, right? A lot of people, why are you thinking about investing, right? When you're just running your business. But if you really think about it, that is important for like the way I like to look at business is $1 real revenue, whatever that dollar is. And however that dollar comes in and what are you doing with that dollar, right? So a lot of companies, right, when they're trying to grow or when they're starting or when they've been in business, they have the general overview of it. But if you start being a little bit more intentional and thinking like, oh, okay, well, what exactly is happening with that dollar, right? Okay, well, 40% is going back into the company, right? This amount is going over here. So just in terms of investing as part of the whole Bites method is think about, like, maybe putting some money aside, right, to maybe, use economies of scale if you wanna build your business more, or just other ideas that maybe you haven't been thinking about. So it just really gives you that creative edge, like, "Huh," right? Like, once you start looking at something, you find out, "Oh, there's a lot more to it." But that initial move to actually look at something, it really opens up a lot of doors, and it opens up a lot of opportunities that maybe you didn't even know that you actually could have. So it's a really, really great, it's a really great piece of the BITE system. Now let's go to your exit strategy. I love this one as well. Now, exit strategy, a lot of people, I don't want to sell my company. I'm going to have it for all of these years, which is great. But, sometimes somebody comes knocking down your door. It's a really great situation, and you could possibly sell it. So the thing about it is, even if you're not going to sell your company, but you get it ready to sell, you're gonna think about your company in a completely different way, and, many times doing that, it actually kind of just holistically moves to the next one, which is S, is Systems and Standard Operating Procedures. If anybody has ever wanted to sell their company, they would know that they have to get their systems and their standard operating procedures in place because you cannot sell a business without that because whoever's looking at your company is gonna be able to, like, take a look at what you have, your systems, and seeing how they're gonna be able to run it, right? Whether they're gonna change it or not, that's another story, but they actually have to see what is going on in your company, right? And the other great part about that for a business owner is, like, you can take off for, like, a month, 3 months, 4 months if you do have your systems and your standard operating procedures, which means if you take off for a month, 3 months, and your business is able to run, maybe you come back with some ideas like, "Oh, I just saw this, and this would really help our company." So every all of these things are just kind of getting a little bit of a step back from your company, right? And just kind of looking at it like more of an observing it rather than like, "Whoa, I'm in the trenches," like, right? All of these thousand things that have to happen, and you don't really get that break to actually just look at it holistically. So when you talk about exit strategies and you're talking about standard operating procedures, it's actually a really beautiful thing. It's hard because it's like, like our brains have to like try to get our head around that. But on the other side, there's a lot of clarity, a lot of empowerment even, and probably a lot more money that you
Right. Well, and that ties back to the I, that investment, right? So the
yeah.
investments that you make to increase the value because you have thought about an exit strategy, even just to increase the valuation of your company. And then you have put all the things in place to keep it valuable. But again, I don't think people think about this when they think about finance. I think finance has been such pigeonholed as one of the things we do in business, right? So if we're taking a snapshot in time, we ask the accountant, or if we're looking forward, we're going to ask the CFO. What you're saying is, no, these are components of your financial health, that
Yeah.
you have an investment strategy either back into the business and maybe with the goal of increasing value in that exit strategy, or at least thinking about it, and then you putting all those pieces in place. There is a time cost and sometimes a financial cost to putting those SOPs in and hitting, yeah,
100%.
that
That
HR
is a
stuff.
great I love that you're talking about that, Dawn, because that's real. Like, you definitely so if you think about, like, the investment, like, if you're starting to put money into an investment, think about cash, that now you have cash, right? So, if you really think about your business more as a business, right? Like this unit that's running, and it's actually the whole purpose of it is to make profit and to make you real revenue. If you really think about it like that, these things, yeah, it does cost somebody money to come help you with standard operating procedures with systems. But not only does it pay for itself, but it probably like 3x's or 10x's itself And they are investments, and so a business owner does have to think about that, right? But then if we really think about it, we want to be relevant, right? We want to be in business for a longer time. So as a business owner, you kinda have to think about this stuff. It's like you could be proactive and think about it, or you can just let things come up
Right.
later, and then you're gonna have to deal with them at that point. Which, if you're being proactive, yes, you're right, it's a little bit harder, more expensive, but in the long run, you actually save a lot more money.
Right.
Time, energy, and money for sure.
Right. All right. So let's just go back and start with the business budget.
Yeah.
Notice what I don't see in here is like your profit and loss statement, right? So being able to read your financials, because I think maybe that is just part and parcel of having good financial health, that you're at least running these reports every month. But a budget is different. So let's talk about a business budget and really what it's supposed to do for you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, and this is a great question, and I think your question right there, there's 2 players mostly in business. You have your strategists and you have your operators, right? So the strategists are like, "Okay, the forecast in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, this is what we're doing," right? And the operator is like, "Okay, what are we doing tomorrow? Like, what's happening
Yeah.
today? Let me look at my profit and loss statement, is everything gonna be paid tomorrow?" Right? So when we look at something like this, like a business budget, you kinda wanna have both hats, right? You wanna have the operator hat, which is reality check, right? What's happening today? And then on the other hand, you also wanna have this strategy kind of hat, which is like, "Okay, what are we gonna do in a year, 3 years, 4 or 5 years," right? And so do using both of those when you're creating your budget is very, very important because the reality with different businesses, right? Some of them may have like a seasonal or there could be so many factors with the business. And so sometimes if we're doing that and we're so stuck on the profit and loss and we're not really looking to the future, sometimes we can get stuck. And we almost feel like we're on a hamster wheel, right? Like, "Okay, well, we're just getting through, getting through, getting through." So when we look at the business, budget, we should definitely look at the profit and loss and everything for today, but we also should be looking at where are we going tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's gonna be an economies of scale or a partnership or an acquisition or, just whatever it is that you can possibly think that would be something of interest for your business. So your business budget, right? What like, I don't know, it's funny because as I'm talking to you about the business, I'm thinking about the investment. Like, this is the way I think. I think of, and this is why I work with the higher, right, with businesses that are having more real revenue, because I always think of, like, what are the opportunities? Like, what like, I'm always thinking about the opportunities. So let's say, for example, you're looking at your business budget. You're definitely doing profit and loss. You're looking at the day for the next year, let's just say that, right? Because that's more short term. But then let's say you do have a 2-year, 3-year, 5-year, and let's say part of your budget is now to put some money aside for investing, right? Like research and development. Like, let's just say that, right? So when I think of investing, I kind of think about research and development. I'm not gonna tell somebody that, but that's kind of the way I look at, right? We're always looking for an opportunity. So for example, whatever business you're in, maybe this other business, something happened or whatever, and there's just a really great opportunity to maybe purchase that business, right? And it may not be that much because somebody, it's like buying a house sometimes, you get a really amazing house. It's just because, this person passed away and these kids don't want the house and it's in a beautiful neighborhood. And it's like, you know what? Just take it. Like they don't really see the value that maybe, the first person had. So that pretty much can happen in business as well, right? And so if you're thinking about your business budget, your profit and loss, keeping the doors open, but also kind of looking a little bit more to your future, like, what are other opportunities, right? That can possibly happen, and not that you even have to take you know, okay, we're gonna put this in our books and in our plan and our strategy, but hey, maybe that happens. Why not, right? So just kind of positioning yourself in a situation where you can look at your business budget not only as we're paying everything, but hey, if this comes on, hey, why not? Let's take a look at it. Not that we would commit to it, but it could be something good, maybe something that we thought about even, right, for our business. But so it's like you're gently like going after a goal without going after your goal. So
Right.
that's how the business budget can be used beyond just your very practical you know, day profit and loss and all of these other indicators that you definitely need,
Yeah.
to run
So
a successful business.
your planning tool in your budget and saying that, hey, we
Exactly.
want to have X amount available if opportunities are available. And then that would bring you back to your eye where you decide
Yeah.
how much you can set aside.
Exactly, so you just start thinking that way, right? So rather than your budget is just like, profit and loss or your income statement, your balance sheet, all of these, right, really important, financial statements, it becomes more. It becomes like a toolbox to create, to like, "Ooh, well, let's play." Like, what if, you know? You know, you maybe get an employee that, "Oh, I have all this background in this," and, "Oh," and you just happen to have these funds and you've kind of been thinking about it and now it's like the entry is just so much easier. You didn't really do much. It just kind of all fell into your lap, right? But you were prepared and you were ready because you were using your business budget not just as a very basic, very important a tool, which for businesses that you should do this, but you're using it a little bit more to also create and grow and, kind of make your like, just really enjoy your business. How about that?
Yeah, I love that. All right. So we didn't tackle T yet. So we have to go back and do that. And those are the taxes, right? Because
Yeah.
again, budget, investing, taxes, that exit strategy, which gets you thinking about valuation, increased margin, those kinds of things, which are, of course, financial, like those are financial decisions about how
Yeah.
much we want to improve the value and the margins. And then,
Yeah.
the systems and the checkups on that. Let's talk about those taxes because I think sometimes we set and forget. We'll get an accountant or somebody will just, file. Nowadays, there's so many payroll like software that'll file your I use them. They file my 940s, they file my 941s. I don't have to think about it. I have everything set up. It sends it to the state, unemployment, all the things.
Yeah.
But there's more to it than that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Uh, because of my background, I'm talking about exit strategies, standard operating procedures. So just let me go at it at this angle. So when I think of taxes, obviously everybody has to pay their taxes, but also let's say that a company is selling, they're going to sell their company. So part of the exit strategy is that you have to consider the taxes, right? Because sometimes people say, "Well, I want to sell my company for X amount." And they feel that they're gonna take it home X amount, and the reality of it is then you have to deal with taxes. So I think that people really have to consider this type of stuff when they're selling their companies. And then just on the other hand, taxes also, I don't know how big the companies are that, listen to your podcast, but many companies also I don't know if you've ever heard of him. Michael, he is from Seattle area, and he does this system. It's called Profit First.
Mhm.
Yes,
Michael
and then
Howard.
so
Mhm.
yeah. So it's profit, and then and owners pay, and then it's taxes, and then it's operating systems or operations, and so basically he just has the accounts, they're open, and he just
Right.
puts that in there. There's a lot of people that just, it's just something that's really important, and you should just really just put it in your just put it in in your system. Like, I just think it's so important. Like, for example, for us with our companies, like, we are constantly just have to, like, we bring in the dollar and it's like, boom, just automatically. The reality of it is later we can take some off of there, but we're never, "Oh my gosh, how much was that?" Because taxes are a really, really, really big factor, and I think that I don't know, how do your, like, your audience, like, what do you since I know you deal with taxes a lot, how do you approach
Yeah,
it?
so one of the big things I think taxes it's one of 2 things, right? So one is compliance, not just with paying, but also as you grow to a certain size and different things apply, and when you have
Yeah,
different, numbers of, people, and you also have, maybe some investments, maybe you could take some depreciation, right? So there are things there around the taxes, but to your point, taxes as also a planning tool. Once you get to a certain size or you get to a place where, hey, is this strategic investment going to be better for me to maybe lease or buy out equipment? Or maybe we move to another location and we're able to get some tax advantages from economic development, and then we can utilize those to make, to your point, different investments. Holistically, what you're teaching here with bites is that none of these is completely independent. The budget and the taxes are not independent, and the investing and the exit strategy and growing and getting the margin and increasing the value of the company, whether or not you want to sell it, is all tied together. And I think that as a mnemonic, this is a very powerful tool to not skip any of the major, to your point, segments of business finance that sometimes get segmented or overlooked. We look at the payroll over here, but then we look at the vendors over here, and it only comes together on the P&L, or it only comes together, in the month to month operating budget versus looking at the investment over here and then looking at the valuation increase and then looking at the headcount over here. But it all actually comes together with this forward looking plan.
right, exactly, yeah. Yeah, so definitely, there's definitely so many ways, like with everything, right? It just depends on the person and their business and, how they wanna do it because you're right. They're all components. They're all very important, but let's say somebody has really strong hair and maybe not so strong hair, but they still have to deal with all of them. And obviously, they excel maybe wherever they're strong, and then they just kind of they still deal with everything because you have to, but, maybe let somebody else deal with that since, that's not my expertise. But I still need to know what's going on with that. And it's still going to be a really big factor on how our business moves forward.
Right. Well, we know that a lot of entrepreneurs, even more seasoned entrepreneurs, sometimes we resist a little bit looking at numbers. Especially early on, I have found that maybe doing some projections makes people feel, either boxed in that they have to do things a certain way, or feeling like maybe they might not, be able to meet this goal for whatever reason. So I wanna talk a little bit about sort of the review cycle of each of these, components of bites as a framework. So how often do you, because I know you don't do each of these, all the time, right? So there's particular, cyclical times you'll wanna review these pieces. So how often do you recommend that people review the business budget?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. So basically, the way I see it is, you kind of have to like shut everything off and then go and do some of this work that sometimes it's not the deep work into, like, let's look at the profit and loss and all that, right? You almost have to go, like, I don't know, you could do it once a quarter, but, like, half a year or even just year end, right? And then just get, like, your whole, your goals for the year. So So I've actually done it like yearly, right? And so I'll just go in and see, okay, what worked, what didn't work, where did we have to pivot, etc. And that usually works pretty good because what it does, it gives you the whole year to like meet all your goals, right? Because maybe something comes up, whatever, like something external that you wouldn't be able to control anyway. But, if you have like that year goal and then you're trying to run everything, you can actually see everything very clearly. Like, for example, with your financial statements and where are we and what is working and what caused this. Because I think that is really, really important for business owners, just so they keep perspective, right?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, sometimes and I love what you just said about, like, "Dang, if we write it, it's just gonna be so much pressure on everyone,
Right.
people are gonna be like, 'I can't do that, what the heck?'" Right? Um, so yeah, so there is a lot there as well, and I didn't even talk about that, right? How do you motivate people? Like, how do you even, share this information with people? Like, how do you do all of that stuff? And so I think that right there, that's part of, clarity. And so if you go out and you spend like a day, 2 days, like just really kind of working it all out, right? Because if you really take that time to just sit there and look at the stuff, you'll probably get rid of a lot of stuff that you really don't need that are distractions and stuff. And when you do that, then it's easier to go back to your team and then say, okay, these are the only two things that we're dealing with, right? That doesn't mean that we don't have to get everything else done. But
Right.
for an actual thing that what we want to achieve this year are these two things, these two items, right? And so that gives people also some room to like, okay, I'm so busy. I'm going to be so busy for this quarter. Like I can't even look at this quarter, but next quarter I do have some time, right? So at the end of the year, then you can actually achieve these things. So I would say it really depends on the person. I like to do it per year. I like to just have it very simple, two things, that's it, because life happens. But you're still moving. And the thing about business is that sometimes it looks like something's not happening. And then in 6 months, whoa, everything just like
Yeah.
sprouted sprouted out and you're like, "Whoa, what happened?" Right? And I think that's why it's important to like maybe like if you do it yearly, right? What happens? Like for example, when it does sprout, right? Because nothing was happening, right? Like what do you do with all again, let's do that dollar, right? Okay, this is gonna go to that, this is gonna go for that, this is gonna pay all of these things. And so when you do that, you can also just make sure that your whole machine is running well. And then you can also use it a little bit like a simulator, like, are these things working? How are people, like, adjusting to this? Are they liking this? Maybe they like this method better than this, right? So it's kind of like not only a learning process for the business owner, but for the whole team and for the whole business in general.
All right. So the planning budget, which is not your operational monthly thing, but your planning budget needs to be annual. And
I
it
would
needs
say
to
annual.
include include, your opportunities that you're going to be chasing, if you will.
Yeah, and what I would do is I would do it before the year ends, so that way when you come into January, you're like, "We know what we're doing." Also what I would do is I would go somewhere really nice that just was very inspirational, and then, just take your time, just go and hang out, bring all of your paperwork, anything that you need, and just go through it because if we really think about it, we don't have time to do that. We really don't have time to do that. And so if we bring everything, then we can actually literally throw stuff in the garbage and delete stuff. Like, I don't really need that, right? Maybe you needed it or you thought you needed it or you have to look at it, but you haven't really had time to look at it because you're running your business. So when you do those year end, and it's great to start the new year that way. It is amazing. It is great, and it's just good for everybody. It's good for your teams, right? The new year, let's try, what worked, what didn't work, what are we looking for in the new year? Yeah.
Right.
It's a perfect time to do it.
Yeah, and I think that also kind of takes the stress out of looking at the real numbers.
I love that
Um,
you're saying that. That's
yeah, I
Dawn, that's
mean,
great.
not everybody likes the business finance. I mean, it's a part of business. It's something that we all have to look at. But yeah, I mean, if you can, like to your point, get away for a couple of days, maybe stay somewhere nice, maybe order room
Yeah.
service or
No,
go
everything. You do
downstairs and
that.
work in an
100%.
insane place.
100% do that.
Yeah.
Take your big Post-it notes with you. Get a like a nice you know, room somewhere in a really beautiful hotel and then just write and put it up, and then you're done, throw everything away. You got your what you needed, and then, and then you move on. And it's an amazing system. It really, they're game changers for businesses for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So then my next question is, because we touched on it, we didn't really explore it. What if somebody goes ahead and they make this beautiful budget, and this whole planning budget using bites, and they are worried that maybe it's too aggressive, or maybe it's a little too much, or maybe it's too much of a stretch, or maybe they didn't stretch enough. What do we do as we're looking at this? Because you're going to refer back to it during the year. Obviously, you're going to align your operational budget with your plan. What do we do around some of that feeling if we feel like, I don't know that we could do this? Or, what if we beat it? What if we do it in 11 months instead of 12? Or what if we do it in 6?
Yeah, that's the great questions, Don. Absolutely amazing. Okay, so I love what you're asking, and the reality, Don, once when people like set stuff, okay, I'm gonna do it in 2 years. Sometimes it gets done in 3 months.
Right.
Simply because you put all the time and all the effort. The other thing that I think is very, very important is when you're doing this, think about them as hypothesis, right? Like you're a scientist. This is what we're trying. So it may work, it may not. So if you go at it with curiosity and see, like, hey, right, then you're actually enjoying the process and you're not like, oh my God, this has to work. You're like, hey, we're trying it out. This is what we think. These are like our theories or our hypothesis, and we'll see. At the end of the year, we take it, "Oh, yeah, that definitely worked." Like, "Oh my gosh, wow, this worked so much faster." Like, "Whoa, no, this is gonna take 3 years instead of this year, but the rewards will be really amazing," right? So really at the end of the day, it's kind of a learning process, right? And as you do it, you get better and better and better. And I think what's really, really important for people to realize, business owners, is that it's just another step. It's just, right? Like everything else, when you started your business, right? You had these hypothesis. And you said like, can I get customers, right? Or new product. Well, are people gonna be interested in that, right? And so really, if we really think about it, all businesses is that we try things, right? And so I think to get the pressure off and say, hey, I am setting the time aside for this. I am putting this effort, and that's it. So it's simple. It's not easy because at the end of the day, you don't know what you're gonna get, but if you do the process, you're gonna get some results. Once you get the results, then you can say, "Okay, we overshot here," or, "Oh, wow, we could have done so much more, like, we didn't even, like, push ourselves at all," right? But this is all the conversation for the business owner, and when you do take the time off, let's say a day, 2 days to go at the end of the year, you're a lot of that stuff's gonna be answered too for you. When you have that time by yourself, just looking at all of these things, you're gonna see stuff. Stuff is gonna come at you, and you're also looking at it like, "Okay, what's the next thing here?" I mean, think about it. Entrepreneurs are problem solvers.
Right.
They are. So just think that you have all of these tools that you're taking in, but now you're gonna, like, really focus, and it is a beautiful thing to see, when you do put the time and the effort and you do put the focus, all of the magic that actually happens, and, "Wow, I thought this was gonna take 2 years, and it took 3 months. What the heck?" Right? And it gives you momentum as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard anybody say, "Okay, I want you to approach your finances with curiosity," right? Your budget and your plan, you need to do this with curiosity. I
Yeah.
think sometimes we we believe and our perspective is we have to approach our finances so specifically and seriously. And there's not a whole lot of room maybe to do scenarios, or there's not a whole lot of room. They'll do that at enterprise sized businesses where they'll have teams that do, scenarios and modeling. But as a small business, I think we've basically been taught to look at the numbers, the inputs, the outputs, and then kind of marry them back to what happened or what didn't, instead of being able to sit down, like you said, and say, well, what if? What if we made these investments? What if we did do, this annual budget, this plan in the bites format where we take each one of these particular segments and see what would happen if we did that.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, no, definitely. And think about that. That is like what a CFO would do for a
Right.
company, right? And I love that you said that with the larger enterprise. And I think that's a really great point as well, Don, because sometimes we do get like tripped up where like let's say we're a small business and then we're following a business model from a venture capital firm. And so it really ruins us because we're not paying ourselves because when you're with a venture capital firm, you're getting a stock, and then eventually you'll have your what is it called waterfall, right? So that is not a good, don't do that, right? But what you're saying, and I love, is that like okay, well, these enterprises do that. Like, how can we? And you're right. This would give you that opportunity to do it, and you're not doing anything different because you definitely have to look at your numbers. You definitely have to be close to that. So there's all you're doing is you're just adding something to like just get a more holistic view of where you're at as a business, where you want to go, what's the potential of what you can actually do. Because
Right.
at the end of the day, entrepreneurs work hard, right? They put in the time, they put in the effort. They know the book, everything stops here. Either, I'm doing it or not, right? So there's no like that's happening. Like that's
Right.
real. Like that work is happening, right? So all you're doing is you're just adding like, oh, well, let's take a look at that, right? It's almost like you're just getting a new tool, like, hey, they just came out with this like you know, I don't know, budgeting 2.4 or whatever
Right.
you want to call it, right? And so you try it out, right? And again, you use your hypothesis like, oh, okay, well, let's see how would we be able to use this
Yeah.
for our company?
Yeah, that's great. And that is definitely something that I think, small businesses or Main Street, if you will, hasn't been taught, at least as a discipline. We're taught to make decisions in a very traditional way. And this is a very non-traditional way to look at your finances. So I think it's very helpful. So where can people find you and learn more about you and what you do and your resources?
Yeah, so I'm at www.monicagarciaduggal.com, and I do have a financial bites newsletter and a download, so people can actually go to my website and download the financial bites method. And then then they can actually have it, and then I do give out a newsletter every Wednesday. So
Amazing. Are there any socials that they should stalk you?
huh?
Do you have any socials they should stalk you?
Like what?
LinkedIn or Facebook or
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I have like, for example, I'm not very active right now, but I do some stuff on Instagram a little bit,
okay.
and LinkedIn. And so I do have podcast. So you could just other podcasts that I've done on finance, not my own. I've been guesting. So so I would just, maybe if you do Monica Garcia Duggal in YouTube, you can find I have uploaded some of those onto my website where I'm my
Okay.
YouTube where I'm trying to do my podcast, but it's not up and running yet. So we're still working on that.
That's okay. So we're going to put all those links down inside the show notes and the description of the video. So whether you find us on the day that we launch our podcast or this episode is found 2 or 3 years later, you'll still be able to get with Monica and download the B.I.T.E S system to get you organized and planning and looking forward. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's a great conversation.
This is awesome, Dawn. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you inviting me on your podcast.
It's been great. Thank you. All right. We'll
Thank
talk to
you.
y'all next time on the next episode of the Business Mastery Podcast. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Business Mastery Podcast. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to DawnKKennedy.com. And you can now check us out on YouTube, as well as, of course, any of your favorite platforms that host podcasts. Take care.